November 24th, 1971, 8:13 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Flight engineer William Ratachak is seated at his instrument panel on Northwest Orient Flight 305, cruising southbound at 10,000 feet. The tail section suddenly pitches upward, a violent, unmistakable shift in the aircraft's center of gravity. Behind him, in the aft cabin, a man in a business suit has just stepped off the deployed air stair into freezing darkness over the forests north of Portland. Ratachak's ears pop from the sudden pressure change. The hijacker is gone. Ratachak has been monitoring the aircraft's systems for 5 hours, while a passenger in seat 18C held the plane with what appeared to be a bomb in a briefcase. His role tonight: keep the Boeing 727 flying under the hijacker's precise specifications, landing gear down, flaps extended to 15 degrees, speed below 200 knots. Altitude under 10,000 feet. He has never flown with the aft air stair deployed in flight. The crew has no idea if the man survived the jump or if his body is tumbling through the night sky. The Boeing 727 is the only commercial jet in 1971 with stairs built into the tail section that can be lowered in flight. The aft air stair sits beneath the center engine, hydraulically deployed, angled 45 degrees into the slipstream when open. The cockpit is isolated from the passenger cabin by a locked door. The crew communicates with the hijacker via intercom. They cannot see what is happening behind them. This is the peak of the U.S. hijacking epidemic. Between 1968 and 1973, over 130 hijackings occur in American airspace. Security protocols are minimal: no metal detectors, no baggage screening, cash ticket purchases accepted without identification. And a man can walk onto a commercial airliner carrying anything that fits in a briefcase. The operational question: did the hijacker survive the jump? And if so, how did he vanish without leaving a trace? The obstacles: a 200-mile-per-hour slipstream, sub-zero temperatures at 10,000 feet, nighttime jump over dense forest. The largest FBI manhunt in Pacific Northwest history will find nothing. No parachute, no body, no briefcase. For 52 years, the only physical evidence recovered will be $5,800 in rotting $20 bills on a Columbia River beach in 1980. 9 years after the jump. Serial numbers matching the ransom. In a location that makes no geographic sense with the known flight path. The man calling himself Dan Cooper executed the only unsolved hijacking in American aviation history. He demanded $200,000 in unmarked bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. He received all 3. He released 35 passengers. He jumped from a moving jet. He disappeared. Flight 305 lands in Reno at 11:02 p.m. The aft air stair is still deployed. The cabin is empty. FBI agents swarm the aircraft. They find 2 parachutes abandoned in the rear section. One is the dummy reserve chute, non-functional. The other is an unopened reserve. Cooper jumped with 1 primary parachute and the money. That's it. The crew describes him as calm, polite, specific, mid-40s, approximately 6 feet tall, thinning brown hair, dark sunglasses, black business suit, white shirt, narrow black tie. He drank bourbon and soda during the flight. He chain-smoked Raleigh filter-tip cigarettes. He never raised his voice. Yes, the FBI interviews the 3 crew members who interacted with him directly. Flight attendant Florence Schaffner, who received the note. Flight attendant Tina Mucklow, who stayed in the cabin during the escape phase. Captain William Scott, who relayed demands from the cockpit. Their descriptions match on height, build, and demeanor. They diverge on facial details. No one can agree on the exact shape of his nose or the color of his eyes. The sunglasses stayed on the entire time. The note Cooper handed to Schaffner is never recovered. She describes it as handwritten in felt-tip pen on plain paper, precise block letters. The demands were clear: $200,000 in negotiable American currency, 4 parachutes, fuel truck in Seattle. No weapons mentioned, just the briefcase bomb. Schaffner initially thought the note was a phone number. She tucked it in her pocket without reading it. Cooper leaned over and said, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." He opened the briefcase. 8 red cylindrical sticks, a tangle of wires, a battery. She read the note. She walked to the cockpit. The operation began 6 hours earlier at Portland International Airport. 2:50 p.m. A man in a dark suit and sunglasses approached the Northwest Orient ticket counter. He paid cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle. Flight 305. Departure 2:50 p.m. 30-minute flight. He gave his name as Dan Cooper. He carried a briefcase and a paper bag. He walked to gate 6 and boarded. Seat 18C, aisle seat, rear section, directly forward of the aft air stair. Flight 305 has just landed in Reno with an empty cabin and an open air stair. The hijacker is gone. But to understand how a man vanished from a moving aircraft, we need to rewind 6 hours. 2:50 p.m., November 24th, 1971. A man in his mid-40s walks to the Northwest Orient ticket counter at Portland International Airport. He's wearing a dark business suit, white shirt, narrow black tie, thinning brown hair, sunglasses indoors. He carries a briefcase and a brown paper bag. He pays $20 cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle. The ticket agent asks for a name. He says Dan Cooper. No ID required, no baggage check, no metal detector. He walks directly to the gate. This is standard procedure in 1971. Cash purchases are normal. Boarding without identification is normal. The security infrastructure that will define air travel for the next 50 years does not exist yet. Between 1968 and 1972, there are 159 hijackings in U.S. airspace. Airlines resist security measures. They fear passenger inconvenience more than operational threats. Cooper boards Flight 305 at 3 p.m. The aircraft is a Boeing 727-100, a trijet with engines mounted on the tail section. 36 passengers total. He takes seat 18C, an aisle seat in the rear cabin, 6 rows forward of the aft lavatory. He orders a bourbon and soda. He lights a cigarette. Flight attendant Florence Schaffner notices nothing unusual. He's polite, quiet, unremarkable. The plane departs Portland at 3:07 p.m. Estimated flight time to Seattle, 30 minutes. Approximately 10 minutes after takeoff, Cooper hands Schaffner a handwritten note. She assumes it's a phone number. Passengers frequently pass notes to flight attendants. She smiles and puts it in her pocket without reading it. Cooper leans toward her. His voice is calm. "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Schaffner unfolds the note. The handwriting is neat, precise. The message demands $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. She looks at Cooper. He opens his briefcase slightly. Inside, 8 red cylindrical objects, a tangle of wires, a battery. The components are arranged to suggest dynamite. Schaffner cannot confirm if they are real. She walks to the cockpit. Captain William Scott is flying the aircraft. First Officer William Ratajczak is monitoring instruments. Flight Engineer Harold Anderson is at the engineer's panel. Schaffner enters and closes the door. She hands Scott the note. He reads it twice. He asks if she thinks the bomb is real. She says the briefcase contents look convincing. Scott radios Seattle Ground Control. He relays the demands exactly as written. The Boeing 727 has no direct intercom system between the cockpit and passenger cabin. Communication requires the flight attendant to physically walk between the 2 spaces. Schaffner becomes the operational link. She walks back to seat 18C. Cooper asks if the message has been delivered. She confirms. He orders another bourbon. He does not raise his voice. He does not threaten the passengers. He waits. In Seattle, Northwest Orient President Donald Nyrup authorizes full cooperation. The FBI is notified. Seattle police establish a command post at SeaTac Airport. The airline begins assembling the ransom. First Security Bank of Utah provides $200,000 in $20 bills. Bank employees photograph every serial number, 10,000 bills, each number recorded on microfilm. The process takes 90 minutes. The parachutes are sourced from multiple locations. 2 NB-8 military backpack parachutes from McCord Air Force Base, 40 miles south. 2 civilian reserve parachutes from a local skydiving school. One of the reserves is a dummy training chute, sewn shut, non-functional. The FBI does not mention this to the airline. If Cooper demands a demonstration, the dummy chute will reveal his parachute expertise or lack thereof. Flight 305 enters a holding pattern over Puget Sound at 5 p.m. The aircraft circles at 5,000 feet while Seattle Operations coordinates the ransom delivery. Cooper remains in seat 18C. He smokes, he drinks, he does not move to the cockpit. He does not interact with other passengers. The cabin is silent. At 5:39 p.m., Seattle ground control radios. Captain Scott, the money and parachutes are ready. Scott relays this to Schaffner. She walks to Cooper. He specifies landing instructions. Use the least traveled runway, minimal ground lighting, no law enforcement visible on the tarmac. Scott communicates this to the tower. SeaTac controllers designate runway 16 left, the southern parallel farthest from the terminal. Flight 305 lands at 5:46 p.m. Cooper orders the aircraft to taxi to an isolated section of the tarmac, away from terminal buildings. The plane stops. Engines remain running. Cooper instructs Scott to keep all passengers seated. Northwest Orient Operations Manager Al Lee approaches the aircraft via mobile stairs positioned at the front boarding door. He carries a canvas bank bag containing the ransom and a large duffel with the 4 parachutes. Total weight, approximately 50 pounds. Lee hands the bag and duffel to Schaffner. She carries them to Cooper. He opens the bank bag. He does not count the money. He examines the parachutes. He selects the 2 NB-8 military backpacks. He ignores the reserve chutes. This suggests he understands primary versus reserve systems. He tells Schaffner to release all passengers and 2 of the 3 flight attendants. Only she will remain. 36 passengers deplane at 6:05 p.m. Flight attendants Tina Mucklow and Alice Hancock exit with them. Schaffner stays aboard. Cooper now controls an aircraft with a crew of 4: Scott, Ratajczak, Anderson, and Schaffner. Cooper orders refueling for a flight to Mexico City. He specifies the flight plan in detail. Scott informs him that Mexico City exceeds the 727's range under normal conditions. Then Cooper adjusts. They will fly to Reno, Nevada, refuel, then continue to Mexico City. Scott agrees, but Cooper adds additional requirements. The aircraft must fly with landing gear down, flaps extended to 15 degrees, airspeed no faster than 200 knots, altitude no higher than 10,000 feet. Scott calculates fuel consumption. These parameters drastically increase drag. The aircraft will burn fuel 3 times faster than normal cruise. Even Reno is marginal. Scott explains this. Cooper acknowledges. He does not change the parameters. This is the operational signature. Cooper is not planning to land in Mexico City. He is engineering flight conditions that allow a parachute jump. Gear down reduces airspeed. Flaps extended increase lift at low speed. 10,000 feet is survivable without oxygen. 200 knots is slow enough that a human body can exit the aircraft without immediate structural trauma. Scott understands what Cooper intends. He does not argue. At 7:40 p.m., refueling is complete. Cooper orders the crew into the cockpit. He tells them to close and lock the door. He will remain alone in the cabin. Scott, Ratajczak, Anderson, and Schaffner move forward. The cockpit door closes. They hear Cooper moving in the cabin. They hear the aft air-stair intercom activate. Cooper's voice comes through the speaker. He asks how to open the aft air-stair. Anderson explains the hydraulic system. There is a cockpit switch and a manual release lever in the cabin. Cooper tries the manual lever. It does not deploy. Anderson flips the cockpit switch. The air-stair hydraulics engage. The crew hears the mechanical grind of the stairs extending into the slipstream. The cabin pressure drops. The temperature falls. The 727 is flying at 196 knots, 9,800 feet over southwestern Washington. Rain, wind, freezing temperatures, 0 visibility. Cooper is alone in the cabin with $200,000, 2 parachutes, and an open stairway descending into darkness. November 24th, 1971. Dan Cooper has just jumped from Northwest Orient Flight 305 with $200,000 and a parachute, vanishing into the night sky over southwestern Washington. The plane continues toward Reno with an empty cabin and a deployed air stair. 11:02 p.m. Flight 305 touches down at Reno Tahoe International Airport. FBI agents and local law enforcement surround the aircraft before the engines shut down. The cockpit crew remains inside while agents board through the front stairs. Yes, the aft air stair is still extended, swaying slightly in the cold desert air. The cabin is empty. Seat 18C shows no signs of struggle. Cooper's clip-on tie lies on the floor near the seat. His mother-of-pearl tie clip rests beside it. 8 cigarette butts fill the ashtray. That's everything he left behind. The FBI immediately establishes a search perimeter in southwestern Washington based on the flight path and the 8:13 p.m. pressure change. The estimated jump zone centers on the forested area near Ariel, Washington, approximately 25 miles north of Portland. The terrain is dense Douglas fir forest, steep ravines, and the Lewis River cutting through the landscape. Ground temperature that night was 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Cooper jumped in a business suit, loafers, and no helmet. He carried 21 pounds of cash in a canvas bag. The parachute he selected was an NB-8 military backpack chute, reliable but requiring manual deployment. He left behind the dummy reserve chute, suggesting he didn't inspect the equipment carefully. The search begins at first light on November 25th. Over 400 personnel from the FBI, U.S. Army, Washington State Patrol, and local volunteers comb the projected drop zone. They search on foot, by helicopter, and with tracking dogs. The canopy is so thick in places that visibility from the air is less than 10 feet. The ground search covers 18 square miles over 3 weeks. They find nothing. No parachute, no money, no body, no fabric scraps, no disturbed earth. The forest absorbed him completely. The FBI investigation shifts to the ransom bills. All 10,000 $20 bills were photographed and their serial numbers recorded before delivery. The Bureau distributes the serial number list to every bank, casino, and business in the Pacific Northwest. They wait for Cooper to spend the money. Months pass. No bills surface. A year passes. Still nothing. The serial numbers become a national reference point. Every $20 bill in circulation is potentially evidence. By 1975, not a single ransom bill has appeared in the banking system. The case generates over 800 suspects. The FBI investigates each one methodically. Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., a former Green Beret and experienced skydiver, hijacks a United Airlines flight in April 1972 using an almost identical method, parachuting from the aft air stair with ransom money. He's caught within days. Yet the FBI compares him to the Cooper sketches and witness descriptions. He doesn't match. McCoy is convicted and later killed in a shootout after escaping prison. He's ruled out as Cooper. Kenneth Christensen, a Northwest Orient flight attendant and former paratrooper, becomes a suspect years later based on physical resemblance and aviation knowledge. He dies in 1994. His brother claims he confessed on his deathbed. The FBI finds no evidence linking him to the hijacking. Barbara Dayton, a trans woman and recreational skydiver, claims responsibility in the 1990s. Her timeline doesn't align with the flight records. Dwayne Weber, a World War II veteran, allegedly whispers, "I am Dan Cooper" to his wife before dying in 1995. The FBI examines his background. No connection. February 10, 1980. 8-year-old Brian Ingram is digging a fire pit on Tina Bar, a beach along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. He uncovers 3 bundles of deteriorating $20 bills, $5,800 total. The bills are waterlogged, rotting, and layered with sand and algae. The serial numbers match Cooper's ransom. The FBI excavates the area. They find no other bills. The discovery location is approximately 20 miles downstream from the projected jump zone, but geographically inconsistent with the flight path. If Cooper landed in the forest near Ariel, the money would have traveled upstream to reach Tenabar. That's hydrologically impossible. The Tenabar bills raise more questions than answers. How did they get there? Did Cooper bury them? Did they wash downstream from a different location? The deterioration pattern suggests the bills were submerged in water, not buried dry. The sand layering indicates they moved with sediment flow, but the Columbia River current doesn't flow from the jump zone to Tenabar. Either Cooper landed somewhere else, or the money traveled through an unknown path. The FBI dredges the riverbed. They search upstream and downstream. They find nothing else. In 2007, the FBI announces it's seeking DNA evidence and re-examining the tie and tie clip using modern forensic techniques. They extract DNA from the tie, but find no match in any database. In 2011, they release a statement that Cooper likely did not survive the jump. The reasoning? The weather conditions, the lack of proper equipment, the terrain, and the absence of any credible sighting or evidence in 40 years. But they don't close the case. In July 2016, the FBI officially suspends active investigation of the Cooper case. They redirect resources to other priorities. The case remains open, but unsolved. The evidence, the tie clip, the cigarette butts, the Tina Bar bills, sits in storage. The serial number list is still active. If anyone spends a Cooper bill, the system will flag it. No one has. The operational facts remain unchanged. A man hijacked a commercial airliner, extorted $200,000, and parachuted into the night over the Pacific Northwest. He vanished. The largest FBI manhunt in the region's history found nothing. 52 years later, no one knows his real name, whether he survived or where the rest of the money went. The only physical evidence is $5,800 in rotting bills on a riverbank that makes no geographic sense. And the Boeing 727 aft air stair was modified after the hijacking. A device called the Cooper vane was installed on all 727s, a mechanical latch that prevents the air stair from being lowered in flight. No one has successfully parachuted from a commercial airliner since. The FAA implemented new security protocols, metal detectors, baggage screening, passenger identification requirements. The hijacking epidemic ended within 3 years. Flight 305's crew never saw Cooper's face clearly. The passengers who sat near him gave conflicting descriptions. The composite sketch is an approximation. The man who called himself Dan Cooper walked onto a plane, handed a note to a flight attendant, and stepped off the air stair into history. Everything else is conjecture. The forest kept his secret. The river gave back only fragments. Yet the sky swallowed him whole.